again. My beer. I'm a creative lead in SinnerSchrader, and I'm tied to the microphone. And my talk will be about designing time. And that's it. If you already have some questions, you can ask. Why are we talking about motion, or why motion is specifically in my interest? I think that there is already a lot of talks about and papers about motion in digital, but I have the feeling that they are not really in depth, and they are going to the execution instead of really thinking about from where this motion comes from. And as I studied film, I do think that I do know, and this will be kind of about that, so we will see if I do know something. And we will start with the world. That's kind of like the easiest and the smallest thing to start with. So what does the world is, right? So this will be very theoretical, and I hope I will bore you already from the beginning, because we will talk about semiotics in the beginning, because I think that semiotics kind of describes the world really nicely, because words are really interesting, because they are absolutely abstract. Word cow doesn't mean cow, but it's C-O-W, and so the people are really wondering why then this cow got into this C-O-W, and how these words kind of come together and how they are describing the world. And so we have like these two kind of worlds which are trying to describe what is the world, and one is called like science. Basically, we can simply call it like object, and these are the words describing object. So if it's a bag, it has a certain color, it has a certain shape, it has a certain texture, certain material, so it all describes the object. And the other group is basically semantics, and this describes the connection with it. So how we are carrying it, what we are putting inside, is it yours, is it mine, can I lend it to somebody? So, and this basically defines what this object really is, and how we are finding out how to kind of use it, or what is it. And inside this second cluster, there is behavior and kinetics, basically. So if it's a knife, we do have a knife. So it has a certain form, certain shape, so everyone kind of recognizes the knife. If I'm doing this with a knife, it seems like I'm cutting something, right? And if I just like change just the position of the hand, it immediately is something completely different. And you get it, it was really simple. But this behavior is basically what the motion is all about. So if we do have something very abstract, even the cube, giving it certain connections, certain relations, it starts to be a live, living object. This defines life. So basically, animation from the word anima means soul, and this is basically things coming to life from the dead shapes. So that's why it's like absolutely essential to think about animation, that it's not a gimmick. That's the main point. It's not a gimmick. And the other thing was gravity. So basically, everything is in motion because it has a sense of gravity and a sense of physics. which is kind of normal, or at least like in our context, we are not thinking about like macrobiological or microbiological or really like a macro universe, but just the normal life we are kind of like used to. So everything which is in here in this life is by natural kinetics. We can do examples. Box. Test 1, box falling on the corner. Nice, right? Next one. Lemon falling into a water. Nice, right? Stone falling onto the ground. Wooden ground, so it does jump. Post-it with the word public relations, fall on the ground. Isn't it nice how it falls? Man walking. So things like that. You can't do any movement or anything without a motion. This is impossible. Without acceleration, the acceleration of the motion. While in digital, that's a little bit different because there is this feeling of instant. So the pixel lights up and it's just on. And it's not only digital, but it's also basically a cinema. But cinema is a little bit mechanical, but this digital is just on. So our goal is basically to bring this normal to it by force, because it is just not doing it by nature. So what do we know about motion in digital when we already are kind of in a digital and there is already shitloads of things which we do know, and I don't want to talk about them that much, so I will just kind of brush them really fast, or at least I will try to. We know that motion is a sequence of images. That's basically working because something called retina persistence. So if you see an image, it stays in your eye for a couple of milliseconds. So with this trick, when you shoot a couple of images, we see fluid motion. Maybe we can do it again, because I kind of really like this slide. And 24 frames per second is a normal kind of movie industry standard. We do have 25 frames per second in Europe, just because the electricity have 50 hertz. So the TVs are working 2 times as fast, so they are displaying 2 times as many images, so 50. And States and Japan and some other countries are having 60 hertz, so they are displaying 30 frames, which basically means effectively 60. Right now in digital we have basically kind of no clue, because this the TV is already gone, so we can basically choose. But as lots of these things are coming from America, they are basically based on 30 frames by design most of the time. So 30 frames is something like a standard. Yeah, I don't know if you have also seen that I'm playing it again, yeah, you realized. Because I also haven't seen it on a projection. But when you have this super fast motion that it's going over this basically refresh rate, the thing starts to go backwards. There's this a locomotion of the wheel and things like that. And here, yeah, it somehow goes in reverse. So that's kind of magical. That's cool. Then we have easing. Kind of everyone a little bit knows about easing. So this is linear motion. Of course, it's not realistic because nothing moves like linear. So everything accelerates and deaccelerates. And it also, because we have this retina persistence, it creates a certain effect of stretching its shape. So it's this trick with a pen. I don't really have a pen, but if you are waving with a pen, it looks like it's curvy. That's because of that. So if we are mimicking that, we need easing in, easing out, stretching things, motion blur, and things like that to kind of like mimic how it behaves in a real life. Yeah, this is something which I think a lot of you maybe seen. Somebody really smart did this 2012 animation principles from Disney. It's really like an old animation book. And say, oh wow, that's really super relevant, and it helps everybody. So there are all these things like secondary motion and things like that to kind of like, yeah, there is a lot of toon and cartoon into it, like arcs and things like that. But in the basis, there is really a lot of interesting material, basically how the things behave. There is nothing more in that. And it's a research from Thomas and Johnson. And of course, what we also know about animation is that we can use it for the continuous experience of some interface. So something moves to something else, and so you are not lost. So when your image is smaller and gets bigger or something like that. So that's how most of us are kind of like using this motion. But I kind of like want to talk more about cinematography and what we can learn from it, because the cinematography has more than 100 years of experience how to work with motion and emotion and narrative and storytelling, and there is a lot to learn from. So basically, yeah. So basically, if this is something like a graph, on one side we have basically a linear experience, which is movies. So you turn them on, and after an hour of the TV series or hour and a half of the normal feature film, it ends. So there is a really high participation of the director. So director basically tell you every minute what you have to watch and how you kind of like should feel. When it comes to interactive, of course, it's also time-based, so the user is actually going through your experience, but you as a director are not really much, or not that much in a control. You are, but not really that much, because the user can choose. So the control is getting less. That's why it's more difficult to orchestrate really director insights into interactive experiences, but you can also do so. But we will be very simple. So we will just like focus on this easy one, and try to kind of dig up what these people before us created. I didn't know that there is a sound effect, so I'm surprised. So we will also have a sound effect. So now we will go through a whole film history. I don't have a watch, but I'm pretending I'm watching it in the next 2 minutes. These are 4 Niepce, first photograph on the silver plate. A couple of hours of exposition, very unstable. This one is, it's a Daguerre and a daguerreotype. So first stable photographs. Muybridge, first basically animation of photo video, shot on the reel, which looks like a gun. Edison, first 35mm film. Lumiere's, basically first recording machine and a first projection machine in the same device. And we will watch a small movie from that. So it's basically like a capturing of reality. Yeah, cool. So And till then, it is still just a capturing device of the things which we do see. But then there is a Méliès, and with it there comes already the idea to use this technology and this material for its own sake, creating absolutely different reality. Again, some example. I hope it plays. Well, maybe it not. Ah, yeah. So the idea of perspective, effects, stop motion, that you can stop the reel, so people are disappearing, appearing, masking, drawing on a different planes and things like that. So since that moment, like 1917 or something like that, we start to call it a film. Fine. So that was the history. And some basics. This is Aristotle's three-point arc dramatic curve, already from the theater, but it basically works still. So there is some exposition, we meet somebody somewhere, then there is a climax, oh fuck, something happens, his child got sick, or I don't know, and denouement, or basically a conclusion, like, oh, it survived. So that's kind of like the base. In the movie industry, we see more like five-point arc, which is again the exposition. Then there is a collision before the climax. So in a collision, something starts to happen. In a climax, there's a blah, and it seems that it's somehow like going to the end, but not really. Because there is a peripeteia, so the kid is healthy again, and all of a sudden then find out that it's not. So, and then it's kind of going to the denouement, to the conclusion. We can see example here. So we know. They know too now. But that's not it. So, and now finally it's gone. So there can be a couple of these peripeteias at the same time. And there is something which we call a rule of 20 minutes. So basically it's coming from the script writing. Producers didn't have too much time to read every script, so they are reading only till 20 pages. 1 page is 1 minute. And then unless something is happening at this like 20 pages, they are just throwing it away. So a lot of movies have something happening in these 20 minutes. We can see example. So I hope you all know that, because
She looks and says, "Hey, what's the matter with you? You're screwing just like a China."
Chinatown, I don't know if you have seen. If you haven't, the private detective is solving some case of the woman with the name of this woman, and blah 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 blah, he kind of finds out that this woman is not the one who kind of called him. So then the whole plot basically started.
Never.
Never.
That's what I thought. You see, I'm Mrs. Evelyn Mulray. You know Mr. Mulray's wife?
Not that Mulray.
Yes, Mr. Gibbons, that Mulray. And since you agree with me that we've never met before, you should also agree with me that I've never hired you to do anything, certainly not spy on my husband. I see you like publicity, Mr. Gibbons. Well, you go ahead and get it.
Now wait a minute, Mr. Mulray. I think there's been some misunderstanding here. There's no point in getting tough with me.
I don't get tough with anyone, Mr. Gibbons. I know he does.
That's basically it. Yes, as everything is accelerating, these 20 minutes are obviously much more different to a series when you have only 1 hour of the movie, or even shorter formats when we have whatever 3.5 average films online and things like that. But I think it's interesting. Edit. That's also kind of very interesting thing. From the history, so like first of all, that was this just this kind of one scene, and everyone thought that like when I will cut to somewhere else, I basically like the people wouldn't understand it because it's somewhere else. And the first kind of research about it was done in Russia, in Vgik, and there are directors around this montage movement, Eisenstein, Vertov, Pudovkin, and so on. And this one is called Kuleshov effect, and it's, I think, very interesting. When they find out that 2 different scenes joined together creates a third meaning. So that's soup. He's hungry. Now he's sad, and now he wants to do the thing. It's the actor Mozhuchin. From here, there's started this idea that the montage is basically like not explaining, but this is creating the narrative, not the individual shot, but the montage together, the edit. And it also works really well with time. So Sergio Leone, very iconic use of montage. And size of the camera coming closer to you, which also accelerates time. Every shot is a couple of frames shorter. You can't really feel it right now, but you will. I use this opportunity to watch movies with you. Then, what we already talked about, the edit can create a different meaning, but it also creates a different space. Because you, as a spectator, you have absolutely no idea what you are watching, so you don't know what is on the left, on the right, up or down. So the director can just manipulate with you as he wants. And this is example from Maya Deren at Land, and this is kind of like this first really creative, I would say, use of the different space. Yeah, it doesn't have sound. I think you got the idea. Another thing is scale and sound. Everyone who is doing a movie needs to go after edit to the cinema to watch it, because what is bigger is slower and what is smaller is faster, usually a little bit. So then they are kind of re-editing the thing, and also without sound it's much longer, and with the sound it's much faster. Example is this one, and we will not be like watching the whole, but if you have seen this scene, it maybe like felt like a minute or a fraction of the time. If we would be watching it whole without sound, it has actually 2.5 painful minutes in a slow-mo. So the sound does accelerate quite a lot, which is something, for example, nowadays we have to think about when we are doing things for social or something like that, that it needs to be much faster, because people are just like not using it, not watching it with the sound. And now we kind of get to the point why I'm standing here. At least I think so. So we will talk a little bit about the interface and how to think about the motion in the interface with knowing all these cinema background. I have a certain methodology which I'm here kind of like proposing for that. And it has 4 very simple principles. First one is a character, and character in terms of actor and its characteristics. And the characteristics are the feature of the character, is good, bad, and things like that. And you can think about character from the simple things, like the character is button, the character is search, the character is gallery, image gallery. Everything what you want to animate, think about it as your character. And what this character should do in your narrative. So it doesn't just like inflate or I don't know, but there must be something why you are using animation. It must be on purpose. And when you have this character, you have to think about the drama of the character. So what kind of drama this character is acting. So is it a button which where you should download something to feel safe? So its purpose is basically telling you the progress that you are actually downloading something, or make you feel comfortable that it is actually really happening, that there is some progress, or I don't know, something like that. The gallery should indicate, hey, I have more still, so do you want to see that? Or it can be happy, it can be sad, but it must have certain drama. Without drama, you can forget about animating it. Then think about environment. So is there a gravity or it's not? Is it fluid, liquidity? Is it like blah, or is it super fast? Is it rapid? Is everything basically super accelerated? So think about the environment, and this will kind of help you not to use somewhere something fast, somewhere something slow, and still like kind of keep the overall basically narrative, which is the fourth one. So this is when you are putting all of them together, you have to know what you are saying, and what your product is saying. Sometimes what we all do is that we found some cool examples on the internet where something really moves nicely, then we stick it to it and we say, hey, that's cool. But the rest is maybe not that cool. So maybe the overall narrative, it just doesn't fit. And that's why I think it's very important to think about overall narrative, to kind of like get these ideas just out. They are cool, use them somewhere else, but just use something which fits. And you can also use it in the opposite way. So when you are building something from scratch, you can think about your overall narrative. Okay, what do I want to say with this website, platform, app? What are the brand values? And then from it, like writing a script, from it also you can define the environment, the drama, and the characters. Or more environment, characters, and drama of them. And that was simply, basically it. And then you just created life. Isn't it amazing? Thank you.
The questions? Yeah. It was not the question. The questions.
Do you want to see Lemon again?
Slow-mo.
No.
In which program have you done the presentation?
After Effects.
That's it. That's it for Prague.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.